Welcome back. The road to adequate water, sanitation, and hygiene program might be taking a renewed drive, where the Niger Basin Authority investing $9.3 billion, I say $9.3 billion in West Africa. We'll bring you up to speed on that with the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Don't go away. Now, you said that this strategy is largely going to be private sector driven. And if it is so, that means that the counterpart funding on the part of the government should be ready by now. So is that the case?
Let me say that this whole idea of bringing in the private sector will not start immediately. We have rundown schemes. We need to invest a little more money to bring them back to life. It's always going to be a collaboration, and that's why it's called public-private partnership. It will not be a general issue. There will be specific investments for specific projects. It all depends on how we relate. But again, I want to emphasize your reference to federal government.
No, I said government.
Yeah,
you are the coordinating.
Yeah, we federal government coordinates. We lead. We provide the necessary guidelines. We provide the vision for the states to follow. But at the end of the day,
you still have a 30% commitment, 31% commitment.
30%, but it's 30. It's not by law. It's a policy.
But it's in the water policy.
Yes, it's a policy. That is a policy. We want to help because we also want to see results. We want to encourage the state. But if a state...
Would you say federal government has meet up to its 30% commitment?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. If the states or any state or local government, well, states, let me say states, are seeking for federal government assistance and they meet the conditions, we're ready to support them. We've been supporting them for years unconditionally. But now we want to make it conditional because we want them to have we want to give them an incentive for them to be able to invest more.
So if the federal government is having 30% commitment in the water sector, and if the federal government has actually fulfilled its own responsibility, how come we're still having 46 million people lacking access to toilets?
That's not mixed in. The 30%...
That's more than 10%.
No, the 30% commitment is on water supply. Sanitation is a different matter. Sanitation is a personal issue. I don't need to tell you to go and build a toilet in your house. But people don't do it, and so we have to tell them that it is wrong. We have to make them change their behavior for them to be able to build toilets and understand the need for them not to defecate in the water, which now, in the rivers, which I now use also for drinking, or to defecate in plastic bags and throw it anywhere. These are the things that we want to stop. But these are personal issues. All we need, the main thing we have understood is that we need to change behavior patterns.
Now, you've outlined two major factors affecting access to potable water, and that's population and climate change. What's government doing to address this?
Well, climate change, of course, it's a natural phenomenon. The only thing government can do or people can do is to have some climate resilience or adaptation strategies. It might be bad today, but maybe in a couple of years it can also turn around again. We probably, if you saw it in the news, I was in Goronyo less than 2 weeks ago. The dam has drastically lost water because over the last few years the inflow has reduced. Over the years, the catchment management system has been terrible. A lot of things are probably happening upstream that is making the dam to silt up, so it's losing its storage capacity. So there are human factors. Certain things we can only do based on advocacy to tell people not to do this, not to do that, like deforestation. It's a major factor. But in any case, as a first step, what we're doing now, we have a climate change unit even within this ministry. We're looking at all the aspects. How is climate change affecting everything? It's affecting the storage capacity of our water schemes, our water bodies, our dams. So our dams, the storage capacity is reducing. What do? It's difficult now to tell people, change your cropping patterns. There is a national program on rice production. We want to continue with the production. So we can't say stop doing rice and go and plant onions. But what we're trying to do now is to change the method of irrigation so that, and that's what that's the adaptation that we're talking about. I'm just giving you an example in irrigation. So in the next few years, we want to promote drip irrigation so that we can produce more, or we can still produce what we're doing with less water. And that way we've at least been able to manage the situation.
All eyes is on the 2030 UN SDG targets. Where do Nigeria stand in this finish line, relating to this race to this finish line? Where do Nigeria stand?
I think we still have 12 years to go. Everything you need to do, you need to plan well. And we have already learned some experience from the MDGs. In fact, the reason behind developing the PWASH program was just from one question I raised when I got to this office in November 2015. I was getting briefings. I asked a simple question: why did we fail to meet the MDG targets?
Now, before we wind down this conversation now, we understand that the Niger Basin Authority is investing $9.3 billion in West Africa water sector. So how much of that will be coming the way of Nigeria, and what impact will this be having?
Well, the bulk of that money is coming from development partners, from World Bank, from African Development Bank, from the German government, from all the donor agencies, maybe Global Environmental Fund, and so on. Nigeria is the leading contributor to the Niger Basin Authority budget. Of course, there are two budgets. There is the budget for the Secretariat, and there is the budget for the funding of projects and programs. For the Secretariat, we are the leading and the largest contributor. But the aspect of the projects and programs essentially are being, the funds come from donors, international donors. That's what it is. But some of the programs require that we make counterpart funding contribution.
Also, the issue of food security. Your ministry is expected to play a complementary role in keying into this mandate. So how much of that has happened so far?
Well, we're doing quite a lot. As you know, we're also, I'm a member of the Food Security Council that was recently inaugurated by President Buhari. So we are working together with the Ministry of Agriculture. Obviously, you can't have agriculture without water. Our own contribution will be to expand the irrigable land we have in this country for, so that there will be more land available for irrigation. We have already developed a National Irrigation Development Program to the year 2030. Currently, we have federal government has about 130,000 hectares of land developed for irrigation. But because over the years there's been lack of maintenance and so on, we're only managing, we're only utilizing about 70,000 hectares. About 80,000 hectares is lost. But we're working on a program with the World Bank. We hope that by 2022, we would bring back about 50,000 hectares back on stream on that one. But the entire program is trying to bring in 100,000 hectares, additional 100,000 hectares for irrigation by 2020, another 170,000 by 2025, another 230,000 by 2030, making federal government contribution of 500,000 hectares of irrigation by the year 2030. That includes the aspect that is being handled by the World Bank under the trimming program, and some of the projects that we inherited that were abandoned, which were prioritized and are brought back and are implementing now. And then aside from that, we are encouraging the private sector to also large-scale commercial farmers, because Nigeria cannot attain food security with this peasant, just from cultivation by peasant farmers. We need large-scale farming. So we're encouraging a lot of commercial farmers. We hope that by 2030, 1 million hectares of land will be irrigated by commercial farmers. In the last 2 years, have released 53,000 hectares of land owned by the river basins that they have not been cultivating or they have not developed to commercial, to private entrepreneurs so that they can invest money and provide irrigation for the country.
The Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, thank you so much for making our time to be part of this episode of Question Time. Thank you very much indeed. Wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And that's it on this episode of Question Time from Channels Television. Now, what's your take on federal government's plan to declare a state of emergency on Nigeria's water sector? And that's by increasing investment by 300%. Would that lead the way to the future in addressing Nigeria's problem of potable water supply? You can send us a comment on our social media platforms showing on your screen. You can also join us next week for a fresh episode of the show. Many thanks for watching. I'm Benga Ashuru. Bye for now.